Hi there, thanks for checking out our video on our channel. Hopefully this is going to be of some benefit for somebody out there. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of demonstrate and show you how to use, for the focus, a Gallagher fault finder. This is made for electric fence fault finding and pinpointing you and pointing in the direction of your faults. Different brands make these kind of things. Speed Right and Stay Fix have I've got one. Zariba and those guys have got one made for fault finding, but they all work in the same way. So whatever one you have or whatever one you choose to get, you can use this video to try to help you out and trying to understand how to use one of these things, because people see these things, I was like, oh, this is complex and they're hard to learn, they're expensive. These things aren't cheap. They are a tool. They're not a little toy. They're not just a gimmick. These things are an actual tool. These things cost about $100, at least for the Gallagher one. I think the Speed Rights are about $125. Zariba or whoever else makes one, they're probably under $100, maybe like $80 or $90. But I like the Gallagher ones just because they're compact in size. You know, look, it fits in your hand, it fits in your shirt pocket, your pants pocket, or glove box real easily. Plus, from a repair standpoint, which is what we do, is these are repairable. All the other brands that make fault finders, they are not repairable. So if you want one, and these things are pretty reliable. I never had one go bad except for maybe a battery, or if you leave it outside and it gets rained on, or you drop it and run it over at the tractor, or horse steps on it, whatever, then that's when you'll have to repair one. But typically these things, besides a battery replacement in them, that's the only trouble you have. Well, this is our setup here. We've got a 6-foot high regular fence on T-post and wood post, and it's a 3 hot wire system. We've got 3 it's a believe it is poly rope. I don't think it's the turbo stuff. I think it's the poly rope deal, but it's a 5,000 square foot area is what we've got. It's 100 foot by 50 foot deal, so it's 5,000 square foot internally for these birds. We've got a bunch of chickens and a handful of turkeys, and this is keep the raccoons, the possums, the foxes, that's our biggest issue, and the coyotes away from our chickens. How our fence is set up, just so you understand it, because everything's a little different. It's a single strand of wire is a lot easier, but when you have multiple wires on it, it can be a little tricky. It also depends on which way your electricity is flowing. How ours starts off is we've got the connection point way down there. There's a little red clip down there where it comes from the fence charger, clips on that bottom wire. So the power basically starts off here, goes all the way. It goes all the way around, comes back to the other side of this door, right there. And we go up and we go back the way we came, and then it comes back to here. And we ran out of wire. We had just a partial roll. We tied on another knot here with another wire, ran up, went this way, and came back all the way around to that corner, tied it off, then we jumpered it back down here. So everything's all tied together. So basically it's one continuous strand is basically how this thing is set up as. So how these fault finders work is when you first want to test your fence to get your baseline, because just to see what you're running with, this thing will give you a amp reading and a voltage reading. Amp reading is what you look for on the fault side of things, because it points you with an arrow in the direction of the fault. And the higher the amp number climbs, the worse the short you have. And I shorted out the fence on purpose because typically our fence is pretty good. We don't have hardly any amp draw any shorts in the fence. Occasionally we will, but very rare. It's a pretty good sized charger. We got the plug-in charger, AC powered unit. But this will work for any your battery powered, AC powered, a solar powered fence charger. These things they usually work good on units at about 1 joule or bigger, because typically you get smaller than that, has a hard time triggering the amp side of things because there's not a lot of amperes and not a lot of joules there. So plus it's on a lot smaller fence, so usually you can walk the fence pretty quick. But if you got a larger fence charger on a smaller fence, or a larger fence charger on a bigger fence, these things are really worth their weight in gold when it comes to fault finding, because you could walk that fence 50 times and walk right by the problem, 50 times and not see it. And you gotta have another guy to help you look at the fence and you guys both walk by. You drive by it, walk by it, and like, God, where the hell's, why is our fence charger not working? Why is it, you checked it with your normal electric fence voltmeter, and it reads like 3 kV on the fence, but the charger, you test it on its own, it reads like 9 kV. Like, okay, the charger's fine, why is my fence so low? And you checked your ground, you did all that stuff, and then you check the fence, still can't find a problem. That's when you need to buy one of these things. We bought this at a local farm store at about $100, what I think 105 at the local feed store sells them for, but they're normally about $100, give or take a couple dollars on them. So our bottom line is our first main wire. That's where our power comes in at. Right down there on the little red clip right there. That's where our power is connected at. So it goes this way and goes around. And it comes back this way, goes down there, way down at that door, and then comes up and goes back that way eventually. So what we're going to do is we're going to test each line and see what our voltage is and see what our amps are. So this wire is reading, if it'll show up, 0.3 amps at 6.7 kV. So we're still getting about 7,000 volts on that line. No amp draw. No shorts there because the low amps. So we're reading 10 amps, 7,000 volts. See that little arrow? I don't see it's 13. I don't see it's 13 amps at about 7,000. So the charge we have on there, it'll climb to about 50, 60 amps and at about 3 kV. So it'll climb real high when there's a really bad short. I've got it shorted out pretty good, but I could make it a lot worse. So you look at that arrow pointing in the direction of the fault. So what we're going to do, so what you do if you have this kind of problem is follow that arrow, and you just check every like, I don't know, 100 paces, recheck your fence, right, and everything. So we're going to walk a little ways, and we're going to, okay, we're going to come to a T-post. Let's check past the T-post. Maybe you got a bad insulator, not sure, so we're going to recheck. The bottom line seems to be the one that had the problem, so we're going to check that. Still about 14 amps, so it's pointing down the line further, so you keep on walking. And sometimes a short will be apparent. You'll know exactly what it is. When you come to it, you'll hear it snapping. So we're going to check this again. I passed another T-post just to see. We're still at about 10 amps. And eventually you're going to come to a spot where you can hear ours arcing over here. So you know where the short's at, because bumped up against a sticker bush and I got these little sticky things sticking me in the ribs. Those little things. See, that's our short. I put that there on purpose so we know what the problem is. So say it wasn't that apparent. That's pretty obvious it's shorted out. So we're going to test this bottom wire again. 10 amps roughly. And then say you didn't see that. Say that wasn't the case. That wasn't that apparent that that's what was shorted out. And so you walk down a little further. Oh, gotta get these sticky things off my shirt. They're poking me in the ribs and the back. I didn't notice that bush was right there. I wouldn't have rubbed up against it. God dang. All over my shirt. Bunch of these little bastards. Alright. So now we're going to test this bottom wire again. And we know we've gone past the problem because we know where it's at. Let's say you didn't know where it was at and you retest your fence. You were getting, 13 amps, 10 amps, whatever it was. And now we're getting still about 7 kV, but we're at 1 amp and the arrow went away. That means we've gone past our problem. So if that happened to you, then okay, I was getting 13 amps and 13 amps with an arrow. Now I'm not getting any amps and the arrow went away. So now you have to backtrack between where you just checked at and your previous spot. So say, okay, well, there's a short right there. We know that. But we're going to come back a little bit and say, well, maybe it's right here somewhere. Okay, nope, still 1 amp and 7,000 volts. And come back over here. $10 amps. No, okay, well, we're getting close. We know where something's close somewhere. So we're going to go just past the short. See, these things are pretty darn smart. So the short's right there. But the flow of electricity is going that way. So check over here. God, I'm afraid I'm going to get shocked. 11 to 13 amps. 0.9 amps. So we know the short's right there. So these things are really, really handy. You know, another thing that you have to, so I'm going to take this short off there. I'm just going to kick it off there. Not getting shocked. So now I'm going to recheck my fence after I fix the problem. See here at 75, almost 8,000 volts, 1.2 amps, which is nothing. I mean, the volts is what you're really concerned about. So if the voltage read like 6,000 volts at 15 amps, it's not that big a deal. I mean, you're still getting 6,000 volts on the fence. But say you're reading 40 amps at 2 kV, or you're reading on a smaller joule unit, you might be getting 15 amps at 2 kV or something like that. Then you know, okay, I got a really bad drag on it, because anything below 3,000 to 4,000 volts, you'll have a hard time keeping animals in of your or out, depending on what you're trying to do. So move this away so I don't want to run it over with the tractor. So another thing that people wonder about on these things is, say you had cross fencing that were dividing up some pastures for, I don't know, rotational grazing, or if you got bulls on one side, heifers on the other, trying to keep them away from each other, something like that. What you'll do is let's use this as an idea. Say you had 25 amp draw or whatever coming on this middle line, and then you have come to here, say you had cross fencing coming off this way. So you would test here at 25 amps, test there, and the cross fence is going this way. If say you had 25 amps coming in, and say you had 20 amps going down and 5 amps going this way, there might be a little bit of shorts out this way, but follow that higher amp number. Always follow the high amp number. The higher amp number is, the worse the short you're going to get. And typically on a, and also watch that voltage. So if the voltage is high, you know, like 6 kV at 10 amps, honestly, I wouldn't even really bothered with it. Because of the size charger we have on there, we're still getting 6,000 volts on the fence, because it's a pretty hefty charger on the line. But say you were getting, say you had a smaller unit and you were getting 15 amps at 3 kV, then I'd really start looking for the problem. But that charger, we could probably drag it down, put a dead short on there. We probably reading like 45 to 60 amps at about 2 kV. Then you know, okay, I've really got a major problem somewhere. We've had that problem in the past. We had to use these standoff, offset type insulators to kind of push the hot wire away from this panel fencing stuff that we've got rigged up. But hopefully that'll give you understanding how to use one of these things. You can kind of play around with one. If you say you test your fence is reading 1 kV at 8,000 volts or whatever, you're like, okay, fence is working good. But if you want to play around with it, just do what I did. Maybe get your son or nephew or your farmhand out there with you. If you got one of these things, you guys want to learn how to use it. Tell them, say, hey, walk back that, take the four-wheeler or a tractor or the truck or side-by-side or whatever, drive around to the back corner somewhere. Say you got 50 acres, go on the back side somewhere and take a metal rod with you, stick it in the ground a little bit and then drop it against the fence line, and then go back and start your test on it. And say you retest your fence, you're reading 3 kV at 47 or 35 amps or whatever it might be reading, then just start traveling the line and checking every so often, and then kind of teach yourself how to use one of these things. And you know, everybody's fence is going to be a little bit different. It depends on how your electricity flows, what kind of what kind of short you have. If I went to a guy's place with one of these testers one time to help him try to troubleshoot his fence, and he had two hot lines. He had a upper one that was about, I don't know, chest high, maybe thigh high, maybe, and then he had a lower one that's probably knee high. And the upper wire, both wires were rated about 4 kV, but the bottom line was reading about 15 amps, maybe 20 amps. I can't remember. It was a higher number. And we walked and walked. We came all the way back around. We never could find the fault. And I got looking at it, I just kind of stepped back and looked at his fence. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Why can't this thing find my problem? And I realized he had about, what did I say? I thought 35, 40 acres probably fenced off. And that lower wire was low enough that about 60 to 80% of it probably was covered in grass. I was like, I know what your problem is. He's like, well, what? We walked the fence, didn't see no shorts. I said, well, I should have thought of this before we started looking. But I see that bottom wire? He's like, yeah. That whole bottom wire, about 80% of it is covered in a bunch of grass and weeds. I said, that's your problem right there. I said, you're still getting 4,000 volts, so it's not terrible. It's not the greatest it could be. I said, you really think it's dragging it down that much? I said, well, the only way to know for certain is you have I think he had a disconnect somewhere, a cutout switch somewhere. I said, let's cut out the bottom wire. So he turned the bottom wire off. Let's just the hot wire, the top wire hooked up. Tested it. Man, that voltage went up to like 8.5 kV and the amps just went away. I said, see, that bottom wires was dragging you down, and about 80% of it's covered in grass. Now everything can handle some weed growth on it, but the bigger the joule a unit is, the easier it is to fight through the shorts on the fence. So I don't know. I think he had like a 5 joule unit, something like that on there. And it's just the grass was so green on there, and so just dragged it down so hard. He ended up, I said, well, what you can do is weed whack it or spray it. I think he ended up just dealing with it. Once the summertime hit, it really dried out, and I think the voltage climbed back up at summer. I think he weed whacked some of it and everything, but that seemed to help him out. I think he ended up going out and buying one of these things from the local feed store. But hopefully this will help you out on knowing how to use a fault finder for electric fence. This one's the Gallagher, but Speed Right, Stay Fixed make one. What I like about the Gallaghers versus all the other ones that are out there is these are a little more compact in size. You can stick them in your shirt pocket, your pants pocket, your glove box. They don't take up a whole lot of space in your pocket. They are repairable. We're a repair place by trade. We just work on electric fence chargers and cattle scales and stuff like that. But these ones are repairable. The only thing that really ever goes bad in them is the battery will go bad. And there's a little watch battery at the size of a dime or nickel, probably. A little 3-volt battery. You can get them at the auto parts store for about $3-4 bucks. And like I said, they're repairable. The Speed Right, Stay Fixed testers, remote controls, or the fault finders are not repairable. So that's only on, they're like a little bit more money. So if you get 5-10 years out of one, that's great. But if they crap out on you, you can't fix them. You got to throw it away and buy another one. Where these are repairable. So, well, anyways, hopefully that helped you out. If you have some questions on how to troubleshoot electric fence, or if you got a story you want to talk about, leave it down in the comments area below. Please subscribe to the channel. We do videos on how to fix electric fence chargers, and ones that we've worked on. We had like 325 or 350 videos on YouTube of how to fix chargers and ones that we have worked on. But we do work on fence chargers for a living. That's our main thing of what we do. But we do work on the cattle scales and low bars and stuff like that. So until we do another video, hopefully you like the video. Subscribe to the channel, ask us questions, send us an email or a website. Our email address is also down in the description area as well. And there also is a link to our websites down below as well. But until we do another video of how to work on one or how to troubleshoot something, we will see you guys later.